Hey y'all, welcome back to Twin Oaks Family Farm. Thanks for joining us on Twin Oaks Farm Poultry on YouTube. What we're looking at right here are some Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens. So this is actually a pen of about 125 of these meat chickens, and they are raised specifically for poultry production. So that's what we're doing here with them. So you can kind of see the footprint and space of this little brooder pen. It is part of a barn that's a couple years old that we built specifically to raise meat chickens in. So I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in that brooder, and it has everything to do with ambient temperature. So give you some background on ambient temperature and how it impacts the birds and how we interact with it as we're trying to successfully raise them. Now, before we get into that, I want to show you something else kind of cool. Can you see those little birdies? Yeah, here's some back here. Let's see if we can get, maybe zoom in on some of them. Okay, so these little birdies are exactly the same age as the Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens, okay? These are Rhode Island Reds, and there's 60 of them, and they will be future egg layers here for us in the spring of 2025. They were hatched October 23rd, 2024, just like the meat chickens. They were also hatched October 23rd, 2024. So the difference is that the Rhode Island Reds have a growth pattern that we perceive to be normal for chickens, okay? And so they look pretty small at 10 days old, all right? But that's normal for them at 10 days old. Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens have a growth pattern that we perceive to be very rapid. And so these birds are also 10 days old, exact same age as those Rhode Island Reds, but these birds reflect the selective breeding that has been used to develop a superior meat bird, okay? So these birds, as I said, are a great option for poultry production, for meat production, because of how rapidly they're going to grow. So we really can have them finished, ready for poultry production in 6 weeks. We would call the phase that they're in right now the starting phase, okay? And we recognize the start phase for about 2 weeks, and then we recognize a growth phase for about 2 more weeks, and then we recognize a finish phase for about 2 weeks. So we've worked out a production system where we consistently and reliably can raise Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens from start to finish for poultry production in 6 weeks, okay? And so why don't I go ahead and give you an idea of what size they're going to get to in 6 weeks. So bear with me. We got to walk a little ways across the building. So there's the Rhode Island Reds, okay? So that's a little brooder space that we made for them in this barn. And so right over here, we'll just give you an idea. So here's a couple of meat birds that we would say are definitely in the finish phase of raising them for poultry production, okay? So sitting down is kind of hard to get a sense of their size, but this is, in general, the size that we expect the little yellow fluffy ones to get to in about 42 days total. So those little fluffy yellow ones that are over there in that corner brooder, they are about a fourth of the way through their production, okay? And then, as I mentioned, with these Rhode Island Reds, so they're going to get to the point of laying eggs at about 5 months old. So it'll be spring of 2025 when they're actually coming to a point of maturity where they're going into egg production. And these birds will have finished poultry production in just 6 weeks. So look at them coming around there. So where the meat birds were hatched October 23rd, same as these, but these birds will still be with us spring of 2025, just going into egg production. These birds will have gone to the poultry processor on December 4th, 2024. Okay, so a couple things going on with their space and with their management. And I said you can kind of see what the meat birds are choosing to do. So they're actually not utilizing their entire space, because the ambient temperature today is about 20 degrees cooler than they want it. Birds at their age want the ambient temperature to be between 75 degrees and 80 degrees. And if the outdoor temperature is like 55 degrees, that's why we're providing them with targeted warmth from heat lamps. So what I'm seeing is, even though they're not overcrowded in their space and they're not outgrowing their space, if we're going to have to be utilizing heat lamps and creating a blanket of warmth for them, they are growing out of the footprint of where I'm providing the targeted warmth. So I'm thinking we may see about taking this short wall in front of us and seeing if we can move it back to about where these heat lamps are hanging down and stop using those. All of the Rhode Island Reds can actually utilize these front two heat lamps, and that would actually give those meat birds a whole nother pair of heat lamps that I can drop down and give them more room to have that targeted warmth, so that when we're having these temperatures where they prefer it, they can still spread out a little more. Because what we have to do when we're dealing with temperature impact that could potentially make the birds cool, we have to be mindful of pulling their resources into the targeted warmth as well, meaning their food and their water. And we have to be mindful of the bedding quality on the floor underneath the birds, because if they're staying in this area, all their manure is also going in this area. So that bedding quality is going to deteriorate faster than if they were spreading out and using the entire pen. But you can see how most of the feeders and waters we have kind of pulled in and concentrated under where we have this targeted warmth. And that's because with meat birds, when it comes to being comfortable temperature wise, they'll prioritize warmth over food, and they'll prioritize warmth over water if they perceive the ambient conditions around them to be chilly. So if we're aware of that potential and we are using heat lamps to help them stay comfortable and feel as warm as they want to feel, we also have to be mindful to put their water and to put their food under the heat lamps as well, so that they will continue to go to food and go to water and perceive it to be warm and comfortable where they can access their food and water. So to kind of wrap this one up, what's the long view for this flock? Right now, the indication is that this flock is probably reserved and will probably be processed into all whole chickens. That could change, and if it does, then we would instead opt to probably have them made into boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And that would also give us wings, and that would also give us drumsticks, and that would also give us chicken thighs. And then with the chicken thighs and the drumsticks, we could actually opt to have them deboned and have the meat ground and have it made into ground chicken or even chicken patties. So right now, that's the long view for this flock, and that can fluctuate with poultry sales. We have to kind of recognize that we may get a deal to work, or a deal may need to be adjusted. So that's the long view for them right now, but they are doing great. It is day 10. They're looking good, and we'll keep you posted on how the flock is progressing. Thanks for joining us at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. If you got any questions, please ask them in the comments. We're happy to try to answer them. And we hope that you're sourcing food from local farmers, ranchers, and producers wherever local is for you. God bless y'all.